Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon for those in a different time zone. Welcome to Rainbow Space Magic 4.0. My name is Angie Sutton. I am the moderator, I guess, of sorts of the readings, and the tech person. For this and the next reading session, we have authors who have flash fiction in the upcoming anthology from Queer Sci-Fi, Rise. Rise will be released on October 25th. Further details and updates can be found on Queer Sci-Fi's website, www.queersci-fi.com/rise-anthology-stories, which I'll put in the chat. Stories in Rise are flash fiction, no longer than 300 words, so these readings will be a little different. Each of the authors will introduce themselves and say a bit about their work and then read your story. Once everyone is gone, they'll take any questions, but if there is time remaining, which seems likely, they'll read from other current or upcoming work they have. Thank you very much. Let's start with you, Chloe.
Yeah. Hi. Thank you so much for having me. I'm Chloe Spencer. I am the author behind Monster Sona, which is a YA sci-fi horror story that was ranked as one of Lambda Literary's most anticipated new releases for February of this year. And I'm also the author of Duality, which was a LesFic Bard Award science fiction finalist. And I am the author of a few different upcoming horror works, and I specialize mostly in horror and science fiction with a little bit of a romantic twist and queer themes. And so today, what I'm going to be reading for you is from the Rise anthology is my story Ironheart. So I'll go ahead and I'll get started here. Iron tasted the same as blood. This was one of the first lessons Alione learned from working on mechas. On her third day in the barracks, when she was repairing the nervous joint in the arm of the goddess Six, the ropes holding her snapped and sent her flying forward into the metal structure. At the impact, a loose lug nut broke off and landed in her mouth, chipping her tooth, filling it with blood like water from a burst dam, nearly choking her in midair. The experience had left her shaken for weeks afterwards, but it also prepared her for the battles that she fought and the countless heartaches she suffered through. And she had suffered greatly. Lying in the crater that her mecha had been thrown into, she could only think of the first lesson she learned. Blood dribbled from her nostril down to her chin. Red lights flashed, warning her that the nervous system was overloaded. Bastion 8, please respond. She could hear Demetra call out over the telecom, but she couldn't respond to her girlfriend's desperate sobs. In the distance, the red nova loomed, its color nearly blending in with the flames that swallowed her city. Standing tall, proud, he thought that he had won. But Alione had proven time and time again that she was tougher. Her heart, her muscles, her nervous system, all were as strong as the iron and steel that built this mecha. She had lost faith, but she wouldn't lose the war. Alione gripped the handles of the thrusters and pushed upwards, ignoring the frantic beeps of the nervous system. Slowly, her body righted itself and stood upwards once more. The Red Nova staggered backwards, stunned. Good warm-up, she told him. Now let me show you how to really fight. And that's it.
Yay. Any questions? Chad and Rory, you can ask questions if you have them. My question is, and this will be for everybody, kind of talk a little bit about where you came up with the idea.
Yeah, I think I was toying around actually with the idea of writing a horror story involving a mech. I'm very interested in like mechas and grew up like watching and playing Gundam and things like that, and I always really loved the idea of giant robots and things. And I love kind of the giant robots that are able to be connected to like humans in a physiological sense. So when I sat down to kind of write this, I wanted to write about someone who had basically grown to be as tough as iron, hence the name Ironheart. And that was what I think made it kind of fun to write, is that it also just involved like the giant robots and things like that.
Great. Chad, Rory, do either of you have questions?
Has this sparked any ideas for a larger project for you?
Yes. I wanted to write like a sci-fi horror murder mystery that takes place on a mecha that's going through space. And I'm still trying to flesh out the details for that. But basically it's about the way that it basically it would be exploring the ways that we recover from trauma and how trauma impacts our sense of memory. Still have to kind of flesh out like the story beats and everything. But definitely it sparked like larger ideas for me.
Some fresh air.
Welcome. I'm assuming it's Emerian. You are actually next.
I am. Okay.
So Chloe just finished. Basically, introduce yourself and then do your quick reading. Once everybody's done readings, if we have time, you'll take questions after your reading, but after everybody's read, if we still have time, which we probably will, you can read from something else, or I also have plenty of questions as well. So
Okay.
feel free to introduce yourself and start your reading, unless anyone else had any questions for Chloe. Going once, going twice. Sold.
Okay, hi, I'm Emerian Rich, and this is my first time attending. I don't know how long you've been doing this, but I'm kind of been invited by the Rise book. Are we all in the Rise book? Awesome. Yay, congratulations. And I am actually a horror writer. I write a lot of horror and romance. I'm not too sci-fi. Sometimes, every once in a while. I wrote a short called Parsers and Prejudice, which was about a robot love. So that, I guess that counts. My piece, I also am the horror hostess for horroraddicts.net. I do a lot of horror stuff. So I'm big in the horror world, not so much in this world. My piece is actually horror, and I guess I'll just start reading. I have to pull it up close because I'm getting old. My eyes aren't what they used to be. Okay, so this is 3X or 3 times by Emerian Rich. Sam stumbled over gravestones, pointing her flashlight this way and that. Why are we here again? Kitty asked. Because Charm said so. They'd been in love with Charm. Sam had loved her longer since she was Charles, but she didn't discount Kitty's connection. Their polyamorous life had seemed like heaven. I miss her, Kitty said. Me too. Sam closed her eyes, fighting back tears. There it is! Kitty pointed across the moonlit cemetery to the mausoleum, dwarfing the monuments around it. Sam rushed ahead and unlocked the decorative gates of the mausoleum. They entered, eyeing the sarcophagus in the center of the space. What does it say now? Sam pulled out the note. Darkness breeds what light forgot. Rise, break forth with what love sought. And that's it. Let me see. Kitty grabbed the note. There's a 3X on here. Maybe we have to say it 3 times. They repeated the rhyme. As the third utterance commenced, a strong wind picked up. They clutched each other under the gale. The lid of the sarcophagus inched and then blasted aside. Charm rose up, her arms crossed. Charm was more beautiful than ever, bathed in moonlight, her pale pink robes dappled with color moonlight streaming through the stained glass. Oh, she rasped out. Kitty shoved Sam out of the way, kissing Charm's ring. Kitty smiled wide, tears streaming. Charm pulled Kitty up into the open sarcophagus. Sam watched the interaction with fascination. Was it wrong for her to be worried, almost frightened, by the one she'd once shared a bed with? Charm's gaze was not one of lost love and longing as she pulled young, enthusiastic Kitty into a higher embrace. Her mouth opened wide, exposing a pair of wicked long canines. Hunger, Sam thought, and then a second word. Run. That is it. Very short.
Same question I was asked. I'm going to be asking everybody. Where did you get the idea? Where did it come? Talk a little bit about the origin of it.
Well, Scott messaged me and I was like, I don't have anything. It won't be, it's too soon. I don't have anything. But I work, one of my many jobs is I work in a cemetery. So I was out one day just walking, and it's not a spooky cemetery. I mean, we don't work at night, so it's not really a spooky cemetery. There's no big, huge mausoleums or anything, but I was just thinking of this like threesome that maybe one of them was lost to death of some kind, and what would they do if they were looking for their love? So that's where it came from.
Any questions from Chloe, Chad, or Rory?
Any other inspirations? You mentioned working in a cemetery and that being an inspiration. Any other like inspirations in terms of like the relationship dynamic or kind of like the vibes of the story?
Yeah, I mean, not really. Although, I think each one of us as a writer writes ourselves in different personalities. So Kitty's my enthusiastic, hyper, excited personality, and I'm also a Gemini. And Sam is my wait a minute, we got to check this out before we go forward kind of personality. So yeah, and Charm is just what I thought would be like a beautiful person until she's dead, and then all bets are off.
Chad or Rory? Any
Can
questions?
I ask the same question I asked the first time?
That's what I'm doing.
Has this sparked any ideas for a longer project for you?
Actually, it's funny, Scott was like, write something quick. And I was like, okay. So, I mean, I didn't think I had anything. This came to me and it actually came out to be 800 words. So I was like, oh, kill me. Like a lot of the descriptions left it, I'm just like, I scaled it away. I go, well, I told them, if it doesn't get picked, at least I'll have another longer selection that I can submit somewhere else. Because these characters like really kind of like inspired a longer piece and like more mood and mystery and description and stuff, but I had to cut it down to the bare minimum.
Hey. Let's then take the spotlight off. Let's go with Chad. Chad, you want to go next?
Sure. Hey, my name is Chad Grayson. I am a former teacher, current librarian. I have 6 books out right now that are science fiction and urban fantasy, and I have an epic fantasy coming out hopefully next month. I went for a more fantasy thing for this one. It's called In the Shadow of Your Heart. For 3 days we walked the sundered path until we came to the precipice, the place where the world wears thin. For half a day we prepared the singing stones, and with the crimson blade you sliced a gash in the wall of the world. When we first learned of the other worlds, we were boys studying under Sister Celeste. Thrilled by this knowledge, we knew there must be a better world than this. A world where your sister had never been taken by the sleepers, a world unravaged by the phages, a world where our love did not have to cling to the shadows but could walk in the light. The door opened, a seam in the world, haloed in violet flames. With a look back at me, you stepped over the edge and passed through. But then, the baying of the hounds. Nero's hunters had found us. It didn't matter how. I could follow you, but could we seal the rift on the other side? I scattered the stones and tossed the blade over the edge, sealing the door. The shattered voice that called out my name still haunts me. You did not understand. The hounds were upon me, fangs piercing my calf, my shoulder. Nero bound me in barbed wire, shouted questions I wouldn't answer. And now, Marco, as I wait in chains, my days subject to agony, I regret nothing. More than anything, I needed to keep you safe, no matter what it meant for us. I can still feel you standing between me and the light of creation. You have not left me. I am sheltered in the shadow of your heart. And that's how I will find you. When I do, we will rise through the layers of eternity and reach that better world.
Yay. Excuse me. Same question. Where did the idea come from?
Okay, so I kind of had this 2 different ideas together. One was like 2 young mages in this secret order working on a secret project, and then I read a bunch of like quantum theory and multiple worlds theory, and got involved in and obsessed with the multiverse, which a lot of people are right now, and decided to do kind of like put those ideas together. And like in the rise theme was like, okay, like how do I work that in? It was like, well, they're looking for a better world, they're going to rise up to the layers of eternity and find like a better world than the one they're in. And that's kind of where that came from.
And then I also have to ask about that sword that's on your wall.
Oh, I did like, okay, I play a paladin in D&D, which is like a big hobby of mine. And I did this, I was having some like mental blocks. So I worked with this like art therapist who like helped me come up with some metaphors about how like I fought rejected sensitive dysphoria and imposter syndrome. And like part of that was like a metaphor of a sword. So I got a sword from my wall to remind me of that.
Awesome. Well, as someone who collects weapons myself, swords and whatnot, I had, figured that. Any
Yeah.
questions from Chloe, Rory, or Emerian?
I love that. Not a question, but I love the line, exist in the shadows of your heart. That was very, I really love that. That was nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to know who the sleepers are. I'm like, who's these
I-
sleepers?
Yeah, this is one of the things I was like, should I put a little world building in here? But like I couldn't help it. But like I actually like I would like I know Rory's probably gonna ask the questions. Like I do have like a longer version of this that I would like to write someday. When I've got like 20 books on my to be written list, but like work it in there.
You're right. That was going to be my question.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions from anyone before we move on? Going once. Twice. Okay. Rory, you are up next.
All right. Hi, I'm Rory Coileain, and I have a 9-book series out called The Soul Shares, which is urban fantasy / erotic romance. I like to say that they are a gateway drug into romance for people who love urban fantasy, and a gateway drug into urban fantasy for people who love romance. And that involves fae and humans, because I really, really love the outsider perspective on all things human. And those books are just catnip for me. I'm also a little bit of a wannabe linguist, and I think that the glossaries are maybe the best part of the books. They're just pure fun, the Fey language. Uh, I have had a few novellas in print, but they are currently out of print. That might be a Christmas project for this year. And as for the story for this anthology, I decided to go back to my roots, because I'm a science fiction lover from way, way, way back. I'm old enough that I had a short story critiqued by Clifford Simic. And this one, I'll just leave aside the introduction and plunge right into it. It's called And the Darkness Overcometh It. Not many today remember the shine. You had to have been living in the right place, somewhere near the equator, if you wanted to see it. And I was lucky. Audrey and I moved from Mazatlan Atitlantica into the Quito Dome when I was tiny. You still wouldn't see the shine unless you cared enough to look for it. Even in the mountains, the sky was black. But if you were outside at noon at the right time of the year and it wasn't storming, you could see it, a pale wash against the black. Audrey cared enough to look. They were an astronomer. They worked with the last of the space telescopes while their data could still be accessed. And even after that, they could still see data from ground-based radio telescopes. Audrey and I might have been the last to see the shine. They took me out of school for lunch, always exciting for a 6-year-old, and we walked to a local park and lay on our backs together in the pale grass. Everyone ignored us, as always. Watch, Coco, they whispered, pointing straight up. I squinted past the dome for a minute until my eyes watered and I sneezed. You'll miss it, Pilhuitl. It appeared in silence, almost too faint to see at first, but then some quirk of the upper air parted the darkness, and for just a moment I could see not just a smear, but a faint yellow curve of light. Audrey keened softly. Madre! I reached to wipe away their tears. No, child, the shine. But when I looked back, the arc was gone. Somewhere, out where it's still the sun, the shine still rises. But my Audrey is long gone, and I am alone with the memory of its light.
Yay. Now, you already talked a little bit about the origin, so you took away my question. So answer your own question. Is this a part of a larger?
Well, I always start with the QSF anthologies, coming up with an idea for a novel. I try not to. I just once I'd love to come up with a little tiny idea that I could write a little tiny story about and everybody would be happy. But I always seem to get this much larger image. And this time, the idea, well, it behaved itself a little better. It's maybe a short story or a novella somewhere in there. But I started out with this vision of an old woman surrounded by a crowd of children and telling them a story. And I originally even took it back another generation, and it was an old woman telling this story that I just read, basically, to a group of children about how her mother or grandmother had been a small child the last time anyone saw The Shine. But I whittled it down, and yeah, that short story might still happen.
Any questions from the audience and or Chloe, Chad, and Emerian? We had a couple of people just join, so.
Well, I love your world. I just, that post-apocalyptic kind of, we're still surviving, but something bad happened and we don't know what it is. That's kind of exciting to me. Reminded me of kind of like the Black Summer, the zombie thing where like the whole world, the whole sky turns black. So I'm really into that world. So are you into that, or what was that idea of the world being different? How did that come about?
I am not well, I went through a phase early in the pandemic, as I suppose everybody did, about reading post-apocalyptic fiction and zombie fiction. Best zombie book I've ever read in my life was World War Z by Max Brooks. Just incredible. But I had in mind more of a climate disaster when I was writing this. Just that some attempt to fix global warming had gone really badly, and instead of doing what they intended to do, they basically darkened the atmosphere, and it was a gradual process until finally just the whole earth was shrouded in darkness.
Any other questions? Now we've got about 30 minutes, 25 minutes left. Does anybody want to read something else, or do you want me to ask questions? I'm open to either.
I have a little bit of my upcoming novella, which I can read. It is horror. And it does focus on like body image issues and things like that. So just as a trigger warning, this particular first part would focus on some body image issues. This upcoming horror novella is releasing with Shortwave Books on February 27th, I believe. February 27th, 2024. So it's coming out very soon, and it centers on a small-time Instagram model who moves to LA, and she ends up joining this influencer co-op, which is led by this mysterious supermodel, and things get really, really weird from there. So I will start off with reading the first part here, and if we're running low on time, just let me know, or just like interrupt me. Totally fine. Okay, so mewing, the practice of shaping one's jaw by adjusting the placement of the tongue in the mouth. Typically, one will put their tongue just behind their upper front teeth to achieve the effect of a slimmed jawline. Certain risks are involved with this activity, such as misalignment of the jaw, pain within the jaw, and looser chipped teeth from the pressure. Those interested in this practice should first consult with their respective doctor, orthodontist, or dentist. Part 1. Although Vix had only 30,000 followers, her latest post of her freshly waxed dewy body in a violet bikini attracted 100,000 likes, the highest she had ever received. She watched with wide doe eyes as all the little red hearts trickled in, and with each one her body felt that much warmer. Soon after came the comments, many of which consisted of compliments from undisciplined, horny men or self-shaming teenage girls whining about how ugly they looked in comparison. The brand commented with a series of heart face emojis, followed by, "Thank you, Vix, we love you." Shortly after, they DM'd her and offered to send her more designer swimsuits, shipped straight from their sweatshop factory in northern Morocco. She accepted them, of course. She had been eyeing their one-piece red swimsuit with the plunging neckline for quite a while, but that $175 price tag was too steep for her budget right now. Her pocket-sized studio apartment high above the streets of de Longpre Avenue painfully reminded her of her ever-dwindling bank account. The pathetic strings of LED lights she had hung around the windows and over her kitchen countertop did next to nothing to brighten up the beige space. No matter, there were plenty of places to go, even on a sleepy Wednesday night. She pushed away her blush pink sheets and crawled off her queen-size mattress, then traipsed over to her closet. The doors creaked open, and she inhaled the musty smell from inside. She eyed the speckled black strips that dripped from the ceiling. They were small and subtle, something too insignificant to worry about, but concerning enough to leave a lingering question. She reached into her closet and removed her best pair of boyfriend jeans, her platform raven black high tops, and her va-va-voom red corset. Was it appropriate to wear out in the streets of downtown Wichita? Nope, but perfectly acceptable here. Encouraged, in fact. And what her mom and gran didn't know would only make her more desirable to the sleazy wretches who offered pretty vapid girls modeling contracts. Only Vix wasn't vapid. She thought of herself proudly as in Taylor Swift reputation-era fashion as a snake, capable of molting her skin and personality to conform to whatever situation that arose in her pathway to stardom. What that stardom was, she didn't know. Singer, actress, or model, maybe all three. Wherever her fame carried her, she would go with it. She decided that for herself a long time ago, and despite her mother's desperate pleas to stay in the Midwest, Vix had rejected all desire for a quiet, comfortable life. Come hell or high water, she was going to do what it took to become a star, no matter if she had to beg, borrow, or steal the hearts of thousands of faceless strangers. She clipped on her silver hoop earrings and examined her look in the mirror. Almost. She turned her head from side to side and applied a fresh shade of lipstick to match her vivacious top. After running her tongue over her teeth, she smiled, devilishly sharp and polished. She was dressed to kill. And that's what I have.
I was about ready to give you a 1-minute warning. Can you talk a little bit about where the story is going to go from here?
Yes. So basically what happens after this is she goes to this boba tea shop and she ends up running into another influencer friend of hers who realizes that she's kind of struggling. Like, she's poor. She admits that she's not getting sponsorships from, like, she's doing like these Instagram deals, but all she's getting is free stuff. She's not actually getting paid. And so her friend Jocelyn essentially encourages her to join this influencer house called the Bleach Babes. And so she looks them up online, finds them, has a meeting with Margot, who is the supermodel that leads this influencer co-op, and ends up joining them. And then to kind of become, she wants to become kind of Margot's second in command, but also is kind of falling deeply in love with her. And to kind of get to where she wants to be in her career, she's going to have to make some very challenging and kind of disturbing decisions in order to get there. So,
any questions from the audience and or other panelists?
I do. So what's the name of your book?
Mewing. It's called Mewing. Yeah.
Can you spell that for me?
Yep. Mewing.
Oh, okay. All right. All right, sorry, bit of a hearing disability. I just wanted to offer to you, because it's coming out in February, horroraddicts.net, which is what I run. We do book reviews. So if you go to horroraddicts.net, click on blog, there's a contact section and it drops down with book reviews or author interviews, anything that you want to get your, word out. And that goes for anybody who's listening to this or watching it later. Anything horror we will accept. Except for the, blatant like rape descriptions, that kind of stuff. So, anything that normally is acceptable in horror, we accept. So I'm excited to read that, actually. So it sounded really exciting. So I'm thinking that there's some kind of strange horror thing that she has to do to make herself acceptable. Okay.
It's very out there. It's very concerning. I kind of, if you follow me on Instagram, I'm at Hey It's Chloe Spencer on Instagram, but I tend to post like a lot of emojis that kind of hint at like what's supposed to go on in the story. And it goes places that I think that people might not expect. So it's interesting for sure. Very fun.
Any other questions? Okay, Emerian, do you have something else that you would like to read?
Sure, it's kind of a short little spooky poem. If anybody's in the mood for October to get ready, I am. I was ready at the end of August. Actually, I'm ready year round. So this is called Lighthouse Legend. 1775 New England. Crashing, roaring, destroying, the ocean's fury it tears. Ships and seamen and shell life, the corpse and bones it wears. Badge of honor it carries, no matter who ye may be. Mercy for none it clutches, all should beware of the sea. She knew what thirst it did have, for men bound to their duty, 2 brothers and a father, all claimed as ocean's booty. And yet she awaits her love, just as she had been, they say. But she'll wait and wait and wait. He will not come home this day. That poor ship, those poor men. Lost in the storm forever, bodies frozen, buried deep. The sea takes them as hostage, swallows them whole, souls to keep. Lost love atop the lighthouse, dressed gray and torn to tatters, hair thin, wild in the wind. To her, none of it matters. She looks on, not in mourning, she looks on, only hoping. The vessel will show, hold tight. She's not mad, she's just coping. 'Tis she, a stranger calls out, squinting eyes grasping his chest. If she looks down far below, he'll say he failed her test. That poor lady, her poor love. The old lighthouse legend says, if you believe in such a thing, to lock eyes with her, it will make the banshee sing. What the living don't realize, what the living don't see, is her grief's not a sideshow, it's a tangible plea. High above the shoreline waves, she calls to those who'll hear, let my love come back to me and save me from this terror. But still the sea rages on, reminding her who's boss. I've claimed your love forever. I'm not sorry for your loss.
Yay.
Halloween.
Same question. Where does it go from here?
Oh, this was just a poem. I edited a book called oh my gosh. Oh, Haunts and Hellions. Gosh, I couldn't remember the name. Haunts and Hellions. It's a book of gothic romance tales, horror. And this was a poem. And then I wrote another story in it, but this was just meant to be a clutching like beginning to the book and to kind of set the mood. So I don't think she's going anywhere. She's going to be still left on that lighthouse.
Kristen says so atmospheric. Any questions from anyone? Going once, twice. Chad, do you have something else that you would like to read?
Yeah, I do have something. This is from, it's not the very beginning, but it's from some of the early chapters in my urban fantasy novel, Blade of Shadows, Wings of Light. To set this up, the main character is a college student. His name is Jack. He's just been attacked by this creature called the Reaper of Strife and rescued by like a paladin from a secret order that he didn't know anything about. They are escaping back to their home base in the mountains and in the middle of a forest, but like, all the paths in the forest have changed and nobody can figure out where they are. And they are taken, the paladin summons the demon of the forest, and that's where this starts at. Standing next to the tree was a tall figure. It looked like a skeleton made of gnarled wood. Leaves and flowers blossomed at its joints and over its rib-like protrusions. The face was a vacant facade of polished wood, with large gaps for eyes and a narrow slit for a mouth. The 4 of them gathered in front of the creature, while the stag took up position on the right, staying close enough to intervene if any of the guests meant to do violence on its master. Children of the martyr, the creature said, its voice a tenor of sand on stone. Why have you entered my realm? Griffin looked at Roe before speaking. We seek passage, we meant no offense. Your kind has never meant mine harm, the creature, the demon, said. But why should I help you? What do you offer the forest? We promise to do no harm as we pass, Griffin said, but if that is not enough, what would you ask of us? The demon grew perfectly still, save for one finger, a subtle knocking noise, like someone asking to be let through a door. The demon walked in a circle around the floor, pausing to lay a wooden finger on Griffin's head, on Rose's shoulder. He seemed to consider the question carefully, and paused for a moment in front of Matthew before tapping him on the chest, continuing on. Then he came to Jack. He didn't touch him, but seemed to stare with his shadowed eyes. Jack felt a sensation creeping up his spine into his head, a steady shivering that could not be explained by the temperature. Once again, he felt judged and evaluated. The three paladins who stand before me have nothing I would seek, the demon finally said, taking a step back from Jack. But this one intrigues me. Jack knew enough to understand that this was not a good thing.
Sorry, I was checking on a tech issue. Yay! Same question. Where does it go from here?
This is an urban fantasy. It's a secondary world urban fantasy, but it's like our modern level of technology, but like everything is a little different. And it's basically like the whole thing is exploration of who this kid really is, like why everybody's after him and what his powers are, and also a romance with the paladin. So it goes in. It's like there are angels and demons, and like how he relates to all that is what the book is about exploring.
Awesome. Any questions from any of the other panelists and or audience?
So with your angels and demons, I'm really into this. I'm a minister's kid, and I've written a lot of like religious kind of stuff, horror stuff. So with your angels and demons, are you going with like the biblical sense of them, or can you explain those worlds a little bit?
The angels and demons, like I wanted to get away from the whole light versus darkness thing, because I think the whole darkness is evil thing is kind of, a little racist, and so I wanted to make the demons more. They're two opposing forces, but the angels are order and the demons are chaos. So it's order versus chaos, sort of lightness versus darkness, good versus evil, and that's in. So there are 10 like major archangels who get control, who are like the major centers of the religion, and then like demons who have the different realms in different places. But I didn't want to go with the whole angels are evil, angels are good, demons are evil. They're two sides of a coin, but they're not evil versus good.
Any other questions? Okay, Rory, do you have something that you would like to read?
I do. I have the beginning of a work in progress, and the progress stopped at my retirement in May. A lot of things stopped at my retirement in May. But this is something I do want to pick back up again. And my wife is sitting across the room from me, and if she takes her earphones out, she's going to start giggling because she loves this story. It's called A Very Laverne Christmas. Can I make an observation that might be unpopular? Jason twisted to look up at his husband from the tortured crouch he'd been required to fold into to make sure no slivers of broken glass had sprayed under the sofa or tangled themselves in the loops of the rug. Let me guess, the Radco ornaments were a really bad idea this year. Thurman shook his head, his dark eyes wide with what in any other eyes would have betokened innocence. Heaven forfend. Though we might want to get the rest of them down before Laverne realizes they all make neat tinkly sounds when they hit the floor. Shit. Jason straightened, too fast, closing his eyes against a wave of dizziness. Where did we put the boxes? Worry about that later. Thurman tilted his chin toward the sulfur-crested cockatoo, watching them with bright black eyes from his cage in the corner of the living room. He's getting new ideas every minute. You aren't kidding. Quickly and carefully, the two men eased the 11 remaining blown glass ornaments from their niches in the balsam's branches. I think we left the boxes on the bed. Thurman headed for the hallway, cradling two Santas, a nutcracker, a family of owls, and a bundled-up penguin in his muscular forearms. Hold on a minute. Jason started to hold up a hand, but thought better of it when his own load shifted in his arms. You still haven't told me your unpopular opinion. Oh, that. Thurman shrugged carefully. I just don't think your Aunt Annifrid actually liked you very much. Jason groaned softly and followed Thurman down the hall to their bedroom. You aren't saying anything I haven't already thought. He was kidding, mostly, as he knew Thurman had been. Aunt Annifrid, his mom's oldest sister, had been one of the few unwavering bright spots in Jason's youth. A tiny woman in a family that otherwise could, and did, field its own basketball team. Her brownstone had been Jason's refuge in the years before he came out, and her take no prisoners support had brought the rest of the family around when he brought Thurman home for his first Thanksgiving dinner. He owed Aunt Annifrid a lot. But she'd left him Laverne when she died back in June. So, all other things being equal, she now owed him. He wasn't sure how the logistics were going to work on that, but he'd figure it out eventually. Maybe she remembered we'd soundproofed our place. Thurman set his armload of ornaments carefully on the bed next to the pile of labeled wooden boxes. Jason thought he felt a molar crack as a screech from the living room, like the love child of a collapsing bridge and fingernails down a chalkboard, seemed to answer Thurman. I wonder if we could do just the bedroom. Thurman's rich chuckle sounded as weary as Jason felt. Why don't you get back to his infernal majesty? I can get these put away. Muttering under his breath, Jason did as he was told. Aunt Annifrid had always claimed Laverne's former owner had been mistaken about the cockatoo's sex, that she'd thought she was being given a quiet, shy female. Jason had his doubts. Quiet and shy had never been Aunt Annifrid's style. Peanut butter! Laverne was back in his cage, thank God, hanging upside down from the sisal net at the back, flapping his wings and sending feathers and fine powder everywhere. Peanut butter! The bird shrieked again. Peanut nutting fucking budding butter! Or at least that's what it sounded like. After 6 months, Jason knew his cue. Reaching into the cage, he snagged the hollow plastic ball off its hook and headed for the kitchen almost without breaking stride. Cockatoo's preferences were notably idiosyncratic, but the one constant in Laverne's life was his passion for peanut butter. Hold your feathers on, he muttered in response to another volley of word-like sounds, mostly ending in "uck." The screw threads that held the halves of the ball together were starting to show signs of wear, he noticed with a sigh. Hopefully, he'd just have to deal with a glob of extra crunchy on the bottom of the bird cage and not in the rug. A moment of blessed silence was his reward for replacing the treat ball. Laverne had righted himself, and for a second, the bright black eye, nearly on a level with his own, almost seemed to shine with contentment. Moments and seconds were fleeting, though. With an explosion of feathers, Laverne launched himself from the net, scrambled across the top of Jason's head and down the back of his neck, and flapped off into the living room beyond. Peanut butter!
Yay. Where does this go from here?
Well, you wouldn't really know it from the beginning, but this story is the origin story of the world's first true artificial intelligence. Thurman is a software designer, and his plan for Christmas for Jason is an artificial intelligence smart enough to keep a cockatoo amused. It takes a lot.
And is that the cockatoo behind you in the virtual background that you're using?
Yes, this is why I use this background, because I don't have my author space set up yet. So I figured, I'd let Laverne steal the show. And Laverne is modeled on an actual cockatoo on the internet named Pebbles, who apparently only knows the F-bomb. And screams it loudly at any opportunity.
Picked it up somewhere.
Yeah. Well, the guy who owns Pebbles got him that way. That's he was a rescue. So yeah, he probably picked it up from a previous owner, and now he just doesn't really seem to want to say anything else.
Any questions from anyone else? Albie Cat says, everyone drowns in peanut butter? Going once, going twice. Well, we've got about 3 minutes left, so why don't we just do a quick round robin of where people can find you? Just a reminder that this will continue, discussion can continue on in the Discord, both in the general discussion tab as well as the blatant or the social media shameless self-promotion tab. So people can find out more. So just where people can find you, and if anybody wants to say anything specific about the Rise anthology, since I know very little about it myself, go ahead, Chloe.
Yeah, you can find me online. My website is chloespenceronline.com. You can also find me on Instagram and TikTok at Hey It's Chloe Spencer. And then on Twitter, for as long as Twitter will exist before it ends up burning and burning out completely. I'm at Chloe Spencer Dev because I'm also a game dev, so that's where you can find me.
Emerian?
Oh yes. Okay, so I write horror, romance, and you can find everything at emsbox.com. It's emzbox.com. And I'm also the horror host for horroraddicts.net. We're in our 18th season. We have 230, almost 230 episodes to listen to. So if you're into horror, go there, listen. It's loads of fun if you're spooky like me.
Chad?
My website is chadgrayson.com, just how it's spelled. And I'm on Threads and Instagram as CE Grayson, Facebook as just Chad Grayson, and Mastodon. I can't remember the actual name because it's long complicated. But it's Chad Grayson. So.
And Rory?
I'm on Facebook as Rory Coileain. I am not organized enough to have a website. ADHD. Anybody else? And my books are all available on Amazon. And I believe also still on Barnes and Noble, Kobo, most of the major outlets.
And then I am Angie Fiedler Sutton. I am in my spare time, a freelance journalist. Primarily in the geeky world. I write primarily the geeky area, but my website is angiefsutton.com. I also have a podcast called Contents May Vary, where I interview geeky people about geeky things. My latest episode just went up about 2 weeks ago, and I interview a music um, and audio producer about what it's like to produce audio. So other than that, feel free to drop your links in the Discord, especially this is for me personally, especially Emerian. I'm always on the lookout for more podcasts. And we'll go from there. Thank you very much and have a good rest of the day. Hopefully you'll be sticking around for the other panels.